Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, the following is a collection of news from Patriots. Let's get into the news this late Friday night. Now, I have seen a lot of things in the years that I've been covering politics, and we have seen a ton of examples of Democrat politicians switching to the Republican Party. Of course, you guys already know that I mentioned it in pretty much every video that we cover on this topic, and it seems to only swing in one way. I can't think of a single example of a Republican switching to the Democrat Party, at least not willfully. Liz Cheney being kicked out of the Republican Party and essentially being declared a Democrat doesn't exactly count. But we've seen a bunch of examples of Democrats defecting from the out-of-control Democrat Party, but what we haven't seen is this. This headline alone is frickin' nuts. An entire city council in New Jersey has just switched their party affiliation from Democrat to Republican. The entire city council, some truly epic stuff as people continue to ditch the Democrat Party. I know it doesn't necessarily look like the Democrat Party is crumbling, at least not on a macro level. But I think it's happening slowly, bit by bit, and especially in certain regions, as being aligned with Democrats is no longer sustainable, and I think common sense is starting to prevail at least a little bit. Alright, folks. Take a look at this headline right over here. Entire town leadership switches party affiliation from Democrat to Republican due to quote nastiness. The entire city council in a New Jersey town has switched their party affiliation from Democrat to Republican, citing the nastiness and vitriol of national politics and the Dems' increasingly leftward shift. According to the Daily Record, town leaders in East Hanover, New Jersey made the switch last week. Noted Mayor Joseph Newlow. Municipal leaders have a responsibility to best represent their constituents, and it is our belief that this change of party is in the best interest of the community. Newlow said in the statement, as the nastiness rhetoric and social media vitriol of national politics continues to infiltrate local governance, we collectively determined that this was the best course of action to keep the focus on local issues impacting our community. The local outlet noted further. Morris County Republican Committee Chairwoman Laura Ally said in a statement that the Newlow Council President Frank Dow and fellow members Brian Brokaw, Carolyn Jen, Dolly and Michael Martyr rally and all join the GOP after months of good conversations. Pulo, who's represented the town of 11,000 people since 2007, didn't respond to messages seeking comment. He didn't cite a specific factor motivating the switch in the Republican committee statement. Of course, I'm disappointed, Morris County's Democratic Chairwoman Emilia Duarte said in a statement regarding the council's political shift, but the real story is that Morris County is rapidly trending more Democratic, and as we saw in the last election cycle, we wanted new municipal seats. Philip Morris Township to entirely Democratic, and all of our incumbents were re-elected, including in East Hanover. The Daily Record noted that the county is historically a Republican stronghold in the states that said Donald Trump won big in East Hanover in 2020. Capturing 66% of the vote according to state records. Now, that statement from Morris County is Democrat Chairwoman Emilia Duarte saying that particular districts are shifting leftward, I have to say is absolute copia. Because here is the reality: election maps change, the pendulum always swings, and it swings differently in different districts and in different states, and is possible. Places like Arizona and Georgia are moving more to the left. But while that's happening simultaneously, other states are moving more towards the right, and New Jersey happens to be one of those states. One last map story. A detailed look at all of New Jersey's congressional races. Democrats overall 54.1 and 20% of the statewide vote to Republicans 44.4%, a margin of 9.8 points. That 9.8-point win represented a 6.1% shift towards Republicans compared to the 2020 presidential election, when Joe Biden won the state by 15.9%. So in one election season from 2020 to 2022, we saw a 6.1% shift from Democrat to Republican in the state of New Jersey. We saw an even more significant shift in the 2021 special election. But of course, you expect lower turnout and different results of special elections. So it's hard to really compare them. But from the presidential election to the midterm, it's been quite significant. Here are the two maps showing a significant shift in the New Jersey legislature as well. Democrats appear to have lost a net 1 seat in the state Senate and 6 seats in the Assembly. These maps show the current party split and the one that will be in place next January, pending any final ballot counts or election challenges. And so we're seeing shifts everywhere. And what's most remarkable is we're seeing shifts where you probably wouldn't expect them. I definitely didn't think that the Northeast would be where Republicans would start picking up traction, start picking up steam, but that's exactly what's happening. I mean, just in the midterms that passed without New York, Republicans wouldn't be in the position that they're currently in. New York shifted significantly rightward in almost every single county. If not every single county, Democrats are doing all right in the short term, in my view, largely due to certain laws that were passed in, let's say, the last 3 years or so. I think if we take a more holistic macro view, we're seeing something very different. It's becoming more and more unsustainable to be a Democrat, to align yourself with that side of the political spectrum. Let's go back to the original article. Entire town leadership switches party affiliation from Democrat to Republican due to, quote, nastiness. This helps me make the point that I'm trying to make here. Aligning yourself with left voids these days is nearly impossible. And there's a great way that we could visually make that point. Very often Vice will do these debate panels between conservatives and left-wingers, sometimes more neutral individuals. They'll generally have a panel of around 8 people. And there's one consistent trend in all of these panels: the more far left, the more staunchly blue, staunchly Democrat, the more vicious, the more angry, the more antagonistic and frankly, insufferable the individual tends to be. And then, this is some big news. The Wall Street Journal was reporting that President Trump's team is now all in on ballot harvesting strategies to counter Democrat advantages and early in mail-in voting. According to the Journal, Trump's staff are actively reviewing state laws on absentee and mail-in voting and ballot harvesting, so as to maximize the Republican vote in 2024. Ballot harvesting is the practice in which political operatives collect absentee ballots from voters' homes and drop them off at a polling place or election office, and every state has their own. So, for example, in California, you can come to the polls with as many ballots as you want, as many as you can personally carry, drop them off, no questions asked. It's insane. And so what the Trump team is doing is they're studying the various state laws and constructing an overall plan to exploit those laws to Trump's own advantage. And in fundraising email this week, President Trump announced, quote, "The radical Democrats have used ballot harvesting to cancel out your vote and walk away with elections that they never should have won. But I'm doing something huge to fight back the email audit." Quote, "Our path forward is to master the Democrats' own game of harvesting ballots in every state we can, but that also means we need to start laying the foundation for victory right now." Now, the model strategy that everyone in the Republican Party is talking about right now is what's known as the SoCal ballot harvesting strategy. It's a strategy coming from Sean Steele, the Republican National Committeeman from California. He's a very savvy political tactician. His wife, Michelle Steele, won her House race in California's 48th district, which, if you don't know, is a +5 Democrat district. Its north to northwest Orange County district, Biden carried it by 6 points. But the Republican Michelle Steele just won it by utilizing this ballot harvesting tactic, which effectively neutralized her Democrat opponent's early mail-in vote advantage. And she's not alone. Remember, Republicans control the House right now, precisely because of all of these wins in California, where ballot harvesting is the legal norm. It was, in fact, Kevin Kiley, the winner of California's 3rd district, who put the GOP at 218 seats and in control of the House. And the reason why California is key here is because they were the first state to make mass ballot harvesting illegal. So back in 2018, that was the first election, a midterm election, where California Democrats used the strategy of ballot harvesting. And they absolutely clobbered the Republicans. They picked up a whole host of seats that ended up making Pelosi speaker. And back then, like now, the Republican establishment was whining and complaining that it was all Trump's fault. But California Republicans did not go there. They recognized that they got crushed not because of a person, but because of the lack of a plan. They realized it wasn't Trump, it was tactics that beat them in the end. So they adapted, particularly Southern California Republicans. So that's why it's called the SoCal strategy. They began to employ the same tactics that Democrats were using with their constituencies, but now with Republican constituencies, so as to maximize their vote. So what are they doing to win these elections? Across the board, where you're gonna absolutely love it? California Republicans had been beating the Democrats at their own game by making conservative evangelical churches, their absentee ballot centers, drop boxes, are being placed in the middle of churches throughout the districts. The parishioners are instructed on how to sign the ballot, and church administrators take the drop boxes directly to the register of voters, so that the whole process is streamlined. There are clear instructions on how to fill out the ballot. And because it involves church staff and administration taking the ballots to the polling centers, there's a great deal of confidence among parishioners that their votes are being handled responsibly and counted with a clear chain of custody protocol being followed. But drop boxes aren't just being put at the center of churches. They're being put at the center gun shops, sporting and hunting shops, in any and all kinds of places where patriots hang out. One Republican strategist reported that back in 2020, Republicans used a drop box to collect over 12,000 ballots from one single church alone in Southern California. Keep in mind, Kari Lake lost by 17,000 votes. One church could have largely rectified that. This is the SoCal ballot harvesting strategy, and it's worked 2 elections in a row. In the 2020 California Republicans flipped for House seats, and by big margins, too, and they did it again in the 2022 midterms. And this is because we've got to remember that evangelical voters, depending on how you define the term evangelical, but generally speaking, evangelicals make up anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of the national vote, which is huge. White evangelicals make up the bulk of that percentage. And the AP Vote Cast survey found that 80% of white evangelicals voted for Trump in both 2016-2020, so we're talking about a huge voter base that with ballot harvesting can be maximized to its fullest. So whoever the GOP nominee is in 2024, I think it's going to be Trump hands down, but whoever it is, strategic ballot harvesting tactics are going to be key to taking back the White House. Whoever would have imagined that it would be California Republicans showing us the way to do it? Thanks for sticking around. Follow me daily. I will do my best to show you. There's a lot of information that shows what's going on. Remember, where we go one, we go all.